Welcome to Beautiful Thrift Homemaking. I'm Linda, and I'm reading through a vintage cookbook that was published in 1917. I have a reprint from Dover Publications. The book is called 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband, and we are reading in the month of January now. Our book started in June, and that's when I started recording also, because the book features a storyline about a young married couple, Bettina and Bob, and Bettina and Bob were married in June, and that's when the book begins. So now we're in January, and each chapter starts with a poem, and there's an illustration, and then I think I said each chapter. Each new month begins with a poem and an illustration. However, the chapters that go along for that month don't have illustrations or poems with them, just the first for the month. And then we have recipes. Usually there's 3 or 4 recipes at the end of each chapter, and I tend to cover 2 chapters per episode. So we're beginning January, and the poem is Simpler Meals and Wiser Buying. More of planning, less of hurry. More of smiling, less of sighing. More of fun and less of worry. In this New Year's resolution, trouble finds a swift solution. Well, those are wise words. Probably should read that again so we could really get the meaning of it. The illustration here is of, I guess, our Bettina. And she seems to be doing some writing with pen and ink. And looks like she might have a little desk calendar next to her. I like her collar. Her hair is pulled up. And then for the chapter, we have another illustration here of the 2 friends chatting over a table. And we can see they both have their hair pulled up. There's a little vase of flowers on the table. And what else can we see in that? Tablecloth with lace. And they're just chatting away. All right, so that's going to be Alice and Bettina, because chapter 104 is Alice Comes to Luncheon. I do love to cook, exclaimed Alice enthusiastically, and we have had such delicious meals since we began to keep house, if I do say it. But oh, the bills, the bills! Bettina, isn't it terrible? But you can't get any meal at all without paying for it, can you? I really do dread having Harry get the first month's grocery bill, though. You ought not to have to say that, Alice, said Bettina, laughing nevertheless. Why don't you have an allowance and pay the grocery bill yourself? Because I know I could never manage to pay it, said Alice, making a little face. I do love to have perfect little meals, and cooking is such fun, but you just can't have things right without having them expensive. I found that out. Last night we had a simple enough dinner, a very good steak with French fried potatoes and creamed asparagus on toast. Then a fruit salad with mayonnaise and steamed suet pudding and coffee. Harry said everything was perfect, but I'm sure it was, Alice. You are so clever at everything you do. But wasn't that expensive for just a home dinner for 2? Steak and creamed asparagus? And mayonnaise is so expensive. Then think of the gas you use, too. I didn't think of the gas, said Alice ruefully. I thought of Harry's likes, and of variety, and of a meal that balanced well, but not much about economy. I'll have to consult you, Bettina. I'll tell you, couldn't I plan my menus ahead for a week and bring them over to you to criticize? That would be fun, and I'm sure you could teach me a great deal. I'd love to have you, Alice, smiled Bettina. For luncheon, Bettina served chicken loaf, creamed potatoes, baking powder biscuits, cranberry jelly, caramel custard, whipped cream, and coffee. And here we have Bettina's recipes for the chicken loaf, the caramel custard. All right, now we'll read chapter 105, and then we'll go back and look at all the recipes and discuss the storyline. Chapter 105, Ruth stays to dinner. See, Ruth, it's snowing harder, a perfect blizzard. That means that you'll have to stay to dinner. I'm only too glad to find an excuse, Bettina, but you must remember that I'll have to get back sometime, and I suppose that now is best. Well, Bob will take you after dinner. See, I've put on a place for you. That's fine, Bettina, and I suppose I may as well stay. I've been anxious to ask you what you were putting in the oven just as I came in. A dish of tomatoes, cheese, and rice baked together. Bob is fond of it. You know, I almost always plan to have 2 or more oven dishes if I am using the oven at all, and tonight I was making baked veal steak. I learned something new yesterday, Bettina, that I have been anxious to tell you. Mother was preparing cabbage for coleslaw. She always chops it, you know, and it suddenly occurred to her that she might easily use the large meat grinder. So she did, and the slaw was delicious. I would have supposed that the juice would be pressed out in the grinding, but it wasn't. Oh, I must remember that, and I suppose that other people may have thought of it, but I never have, and I'm glad to know that it worked so well. I believe I hear Bob, Bettina. He must be cold, for it is snowing and blowing harder every minute. Well, I'm glad I started the fire in the fireplace. There's nothing like an open fire. For dinner that night, Bettina served baked veal steak, baked tomato, cheese and rice, bread and butter, tapioca and date pudding, cream and coffee. And the recipes are for the baked veal steak, the baked tomato, cheese and rice, and the tapioca and date pudding. So join me to discuss the recipes and all the action in the stories. So I think one thing that I want to do is read the poem again for January. Simpler meals and wiser buying, more of planning, less of hurry, more of smiling, less of sighing, more of fun and less of worry. In this New Year's resolution, trouble finds a swift solution. All right, so let's take that apart. So she's talking about home economy, home economics, meal planning, and how that makes life much happier, and less to be hurried about and less to worry about when you do that. So she has, in these 2 chapters that we read today, she has 2 friends over. First she has Alice coming to luncheon, and next she has Ruth over for dinner. So Alice comes to luncheon and she's talking about how she's worried about her grocery bill. Her husband, her new husband, she just got married, she's a young newlywed. Her new husband, Harry, hasn't seen the grocery bill yet, and he's going to have to pay that, and she's worried. And then Bettina says, well, there's also the gas bill for the cooking, and she's like, oh, I didn't think about that too. So she's got a lot of things to think about and work out as she learns her way about the kitchen and about keeping her bills low in preparing for her meals. But she has had fun with the cooking, and I'm glad to hear that. She's made very nice meals for her husband, and she was talking about this steak dinner and creamed asparagus, and Bettina said, yeah, but that maybe should be more of a special occasion, because that's a lot to serve to 2 people on a regular home dinner. So she's going to advise her, and they're going to look over a week's menu plans and kind of see what they can do about saving money. So the recipe for the chicken loaf that she served at that lunch with her friend is for 2 portions: 1/2 cup of cooked chicken, 1/2 cup of ground cooked veal, 1/2 cup of soft breadcrumbs, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/8 teaspoon of celery salt, 1 teaspoon of chopped parsley, 1 egg, and 1/2 cup of milk. Mix the chicken, veal, and breadcrumbs. Add the salt, celery salt, parsley, egg, and milk. Mix thoroughly. Bake in a well-buttered pan 30 minutes in a moderate oven. So that'd be about 350 degrees probably, could be 325. And that's so that a little chicken loaf, kind of like a meatloaf, but it's a chicken loaf. All right. So caramel custard for 2 portions is made with 1 cup of milk and 1 egg, 4 tablespoons of sugar, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon vanilla. You're going to melt the sugar to a light brown syrup in a saucepan over a hot fire, then add the milk and cook until free from lumps. Beat the egg, sugar, salt, and vanilla and pour the liquid slowly into the egg mixture. Pour into buttered molds, molds, molds. Set the molds in a pan of hot water and bake in a moderate oven until the custard is firm, about 40 minutes. Do not let the water in the pan reach the boiling point during the process of baking. Quite a while back, we had some recipes similar because we talked a lot about recipes such as custards and creme brulee and flan after we had a recipe that reminded me of those. So this one is also much like a flan, isn't it? All right, chapter 105, Ruth stays to dinner. So now Ruth is kind of stuck because there's a storm, or might even be a blizzard blowing. And Bob's coming home from work, and Ruth's invited to stay for dinner, and then I guess Bob's going to walk her home in the snow. And there's a tip about cabbage. I know that if I put my cabbage I just fill the blender with water, my Vitamix blender, and put a half a head of cabbage in the blender with the water. Then I blend it very quickly, and then I pour it through a sieve, and it comes out really nice for coleslaw. So I agree that you can chop it in other ways than by a knife. Here we have the baked veal steak, the baked tomato, cheese, and rice, and the tapioca and date pudding. So we have the baked veal steak for 3 portions is 1 slice of veal steak, 3/4 of a pound, 1/2 inch thick, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/4 teaspoon paprika, 2 tablespoons of bacon fat, and 2 tablespoons of water. You're going to wipe the veal and cut off any rind. Mix the flour, salt, and paprika. Roll the steak thoroughly in this mixture. Place the bacon fat in the frying pan, and when hot, add the meat and brown thoroughly on both sides. Place the drippings and the meat in a small baking pan. Add the water, cover, and place in the oven. Cook 1 hour. More water may be added if necessary. All right, I very rarely have had veal. I don't know about you, but I have very rarely had it, and I think I've only had it in the form of veal parmesan. Now the baked tomato, cheese, and rice for 3 portions. Start with 1 cup of cooked rice, 1/3 a cup tomatoes, 4 tablespoons cheese cut fine, 1 tablespoon pimento, 1 teaspoon salt, 1/4 a teaspoon paprika, 1 tablespoon flour, 1/2 a cup milk, 1 tablespoon melted butter, 1/4 cup cracker or bread crumbs. Mix the rice and flour. Add the tomatoes, cheese, salt, and paprika. Add the milk. Pour into a well-buttered baking dish. Melt the butter and add the crumbs. Spread the buttered crumbs on the rice mixture. Bake in a moderate oven for 25 minutes. So that sounds like an interesting side dish, doesn't it? Then the tapioca and date pudding is also for 3 portions. You start with 4 tablespoons of tapioca, 1/4 teaspoon salt, 2 tablespoons cold water, 1 cup of boiling water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 8 dates cut fine, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 egg yolk, 1 egg white, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And here are the directions for this tapioca and date pudding. You're going to soak the tapioca in cold water for 10 minutes. Then add the salt and boiling water and cook in a double boiler until transparent, about 20 minutes. Add the sugar and the dates cut fine, the lemon juice, egg yolk, and vanilla. Remove from the fire and add the stiffly beaten egg white. Pile the mixture lightly in glass dishes and serve cold. All right. So there's a different kind of a dessert for you. What else did I want to point out? There was something else I thought I wanted to talk about. How nice it is to have a fire in the living room in an evening in winter. So Bettina is so glad that she has a fire made in the fireplace so that when Bob comes home from work, the house is going to be nice and warm. And then while she's there with Ruth, they have that ambiance as well. So I hope that you're staying warm and cozy and that you're having a wonderful start to 2026, our new year. And I hope that you will comment and like as often as you can. Thank you so much for joining me.